Mark and Amy run over to the gardening supplies and pick up 2 shovels to defend themselves with. The heart creature charges forward. It walks right over the car, smashing it with each footstep that lands on it. When it reaches the edge of the car, it jumps forward. Amy swings her shovel, knocking the creature back. Angered, the creature picks Amy up with one of its arms and starts shaking her. Mark runs forward to try to help, but the creature swings one of its other arms, knocking him back. Amy rams her shovel into the creature's arm, causing it to let go. The creature grabs boxes and starts swinging them at the teenagers. Boxes hit Amy and Mark, knocking them down. The monster runs over and jumps into the air, preparing to strike at its victims. Before it can strike, Mark and Amy ram their shovels into the creature's exposed main body. It falls down to the ground and stops beating. With the creature finally stopped, the 2 teenagers waste no time. Amy gets on the purple bike, Mark gets on the red bike, and the 2 of them pedal out of the garage. Chapter 3. Plunging Deeper. Outside, night has completely set in and the thunderstorm still rages. Inside the garage, Amy and Mark can hear a great clattering. They look back and see that the heart creature is getting back up. They quickly start pedaling down the street on their bikes, but soon encounter zombies coming from in front of them and to the sides. It looks like they have nowhere to run. Then, surprisingly, the zombies walk right past Mark and Amy and start attacking the heart creature. The teenagers have puzzled looks on their faces, but they don't question what's going on. They take advantage of this opportunity to get away. Amy and Mark pedal their way down not-so-empty streets. They regularly have to swerve to avoid hitting stationary cars, falling into numerous strange holes in the ground, or even colliding with monsters. Monsters that they get too close to, or they get too close to them, occasionally try to take swipes at the teens and their bikes, but they're fast enough and alert enough to avoid or dodge any great threats. Suddenly, they can hear screaming in the distance that sounds very much like a human and not a monster. Could it be possible? Amy wonders. Is there really another living person out there? They sound like they're in trouble, Mark says. We have to go help them. Mark and Amy continue pedaling down the road, following the screaming, until they reach a shadowy figure sitting in a hole in the road that is definitely the source of the screaming. They get off their bikes and approach the figure. The figure turns around and screams again, this time sounding much less human. Through the darkness and rain, the teenagers can only make out that the creature has a small body and huge eyes that have no iris or pupil. They brace themselves to be attacked, but the creature actually runs away from them, screaming along the way. Amy falls to her knees. Her voice breaking, Amy says, "Did no one survive? Are we the only people left in this town? Are we the only people left on Earth?" In the distance, the screaming of numerous creatures can be heard. It gets louder as they get closer. The teenagers quickly get back on their bikes and start pedaling away. They continue pedaling their way toward the research lab, with the pack of screaming creatures chasing them the whole time. They finally arrive in front of the research lab. They get off their bikes. Amy pulls the front door, but it doesn't budge. "Damn it!" she exclaims. "It won't open!" The screaming from the pack of creatures keeps getting closer. "How the hell are we supposed to get in?" Mark says, panicking. A huge monster bursts through the door, knocking Amy and Mark back. The pack of screaming creatures approaches, but runs away when it sees the hulking creature. The big monster chases after them. As Amy and Mark enter the lab through the newly opened entrance, the ground starts to once again shake violently. "Another earthquake?" Amy says. "What the hell is going on?" The shaking stops as suddenly as it began. "There's no time to think about that," Mark says. "Come on, maybe there's something in here that will explain why these earthquakes are happening, in addition to the other answers we seek." Mark and Amy find themselves in what appears to be a reception hall. In the center of the room is a desk with a chair behind it. Behind the chair and desk, there are elevators on the right side wall and a door leading to a staircase on the left side wall. On the desk is a handgun with a holster, as well as packages containing bullets for the handgun. Mark walks up to the handgun, picks it up, and straps it around his waist. "Oh, sweet," he says. "Now we're talking." "Are you serious?" Amy says. "The authorities will kill us if they know we're carrying firearms illegally." "The authorities are probably trying to kill us already," Mark states. "We need something to protect ourselves that's more effective than our fists." "So why do you get the handgun and not me?" Amy asks. "There's another one over there," Mark says. Mark motions to a corpse of a researcher slumped over near the elevators. Strapped to its waist is another handgun. Mark and Amy pocket the handgun ammunition, and Amy cautiously walks over to the corpse. "I just know this body is going to suddenly get up any second now," Amy says nervously. Carefully, and without taking her eyes off the corpse for a second, Amy takes the handgun off the corpse and puts it on her own waist. She then stares at the elevator doors. "I guess these things won't work if there's no electricity," she ponders. Mark walks over to the door on the wall opposite the elevators. "Then this door has to lead to a staircase," he says. He grabs the handle, but the door won't open. "Oh, you've got to be kidding," he says, exasperated. "This door is locked too." Mark and Amy look around the room to see if they can find a key or anything that will get the door open. Mark walks up to the chair behind the desk. "If we can't get the door open," Mark suggests, "maybe we can break it down." "Let's try it," Amy agrees. Mark and Amy pick up the chair, take it over to the door, and start ramming the chair against the door. Moaning can be heard in the distance, and zombies start to enter the building. "One of us is going to have to fight them off," Mark begins, "while the other keeps working on this door. Do you think you can handle this chair on your own?" "Probably not," Amy says. "I guess it's up to me to fight them off." Suddenly, a mysterious voice can barely be heard, saying, "You face a threat you cannot hope to overcome." Amy looks around for the source of the mysterious voice, but the sound of a zombie moaning behind her snaps her back to attention. She lets go of the chair and readies her handgun. "We don't have a lot of ammunition," she reminds herself. "I better not shoot unless I absolutely have to." Mark continues to ram the chair against the door. Amy waits as the zombies approach. One gets within arm's length and she punches it away before it can attack. Several zombies approach, getting closer and closer. Amy readies her handgun and prepares to fire. Then the sound of numerous voices screaming can be heard. A pack of screaming creatures enters the building. Just like before, the zombies turn their attention away from Amy and Mark and charges the other monsters. A zombie grabs a screaming creature and starts biting it. The rest of the pack of screaming creatures singles out a zombie and swarms over it. Overwhelmed, the zombie falls to the ground. The rest of the zombies join in the fight, and it becomes impossible to tell what's happening through the mass of bodies. Finally, the commotion stops. Two screamers emerge from the mass of bodies and charge at Amy. Amy shoots them, killing them both. Then, the sound of heavy sobbing can be heard. A new creature appears, entering the building. The wailing creature's body is slumped over as it moves slowly, as if every movement requires great effort. Amy shoots at it, but it lets out a cry so terrible that Amy has to cover her ears. She becomes nearly paralyzed with fear. The wailing creature approaches her and swings its arms, knocking her to the ground. It raises its arms and prepares to land the finishing blow. Then, the sound of thunderous footsteps can be heard. The huge creature is back. It enters the building and charges forward. Mark finally breaks the door open. Amy gets up and runs over to him. The wailing creature turns to face the huge creature, but before it can even ready an attack, the huge creature swings its massive arms. The sobbing creature goes flying and slams into a wall. The huge creature then charges at Amy and Mark. They run through the newly opened door and start climbing the stairs. They look back and see that the huge creature is reaching its arm through the doorway, but thankfully it cannot reach the teens.